This exercise is going to be the kettlebell swing. Now, at the foundation of a kettlebell swing, you have a hip hinge. And if you do not know how to hip hinge, or you do not know what a hip hinge is, go check out my other video on how to hip hinge before attempting this exercise. Because just like building a house, you can't build a house without the foundation, and a hip hinge is the foundation for a kettlebell swing. Really important, because a kettlebell swing is quick and powerful, explosive. And if you're not doing this with good form, you are at a higher risk of getting hurt. So go learn how to hip hinge before this exercise. With that said, let's get into the kettlebell swing. You're gonna grab a kettlebell, and this is one of the few cases where a heavier kettlebell will help you with your form versus a light kettlebell, because the problem I see with kettlebell swings is people over muscle it with their shoulders. And if you are feeling it in your shoulders, you're doing it incorrectly. The shoulders, the arms, is there to anchor the weight so it doesn't fly off. But the shoulders aren't doing the work. The butt muscles, the hips, it's all in the hips. That's what you should be feeling. So with your kettlebell, start in the front, about 1.5 feet, 2 feet here. Then you're going to hinge your hips back. Keep the chest higher than what the hips are doing, so we don't want any of this. So keep the hips low, keep the chest up high, core engaged. I'm gonna grab my kettlebell, and then I'm gonna lock in my shoulders. Now, first step, before you attempt a full swing, just practice hiking. You want to be able to hike the kettlebell without letting the chest fall forward. See? You're going to fall forward. So put the weight into the heel and your hips here as you hike that kettlebell back. Once you can hike the kettlebell back without falling forward, the next step is to explode up. And I don't mean using your arms to explode. Again, all in the butt muscles to explode up. Look like this. So I'm gonna hike, bring back down. Tricky part is that coming back down, you obviously want to avoid hitting yourself. Makes sense. So you're gonna play a little chicken with yourself. Right before the weight goes and hits you in the nads, you're going to quickly push your hips back into that hip hinge. And then you're gonna let that kettlebell float down, because we're just gonna start with 1 rep. So again, you want to hike, explode, bring it back down. Playing chicken in that last minute as you come back down and float it to the floor. I know, kettlebell swings, a lot of steps to it, but I promise you, it gets better the more you practice it, and becomes a really beneficial exercise for strength, power, conditioning. Once you get good with that one single swing, let's work on continuous swings. So instead of letting that kettlebell float down the ground, as you quickly hip hinge back, the kettlebell is going to go behind you, and that's when you just explode back up like this. Notice I'm quickly letting that hips push back, and I'm letting the kettlebell float back up using the hip muscles, about chest height. What you do want to avoid, and this is where people go wrong using their shoulder muscles, is bringing the weight up here. Sorry about that, out of breath, a lot of swings. Again, conditioning. But here's the problem by going overhead. It doesn't feel good in the shoulder complex. There's a really tight amount of space right here, bringing overhead with a lot of weight and momentum, right? Doesn't feel good. So I try and cap it around shoulder height, and it depends on, again, on the individual, what weight you're using, conditioning or power. Typically, the heavier you go is not gonna get up to that shoulder level. If you're doing like 1 to 3 rep max of like heavy weight, it might get to like this level right here. Really, the height doesn't matter as long as it doesn't go overhead. Again, it just doesn't feel good on the shoulder, especially if you do it over and over and over again. But there you have it. There is your kettlebell swings. I hope this tutorial was helpful.